Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Thoughts of the Young Icon channel with me, Sam. Today being a very warm and lovely day in the warm heart of Africa, I decided to shoot today's episode from my backyard. Today, I want to address a question that I get from a lot of youngsters who come up to me and they say, "Hey, Sam, you look like a pretty successful guy, and I'd like to know what your daily routine looks like." So basically, they want to know how I go about my day, what I do when, and the assumption is by knowing how, quote unquote, a successful person goes about their day, then they will be able to replicate that and in turn achieve success. Now, I don't flaw their line of thinking entirely. I think they have the right idea in the sense that they're looking. But in my personal opinion, I feel as if someone's daily routine is not necessarily the thing that makes someone successful or unsuccessful. Yes, it plays a major part, but I don't think that the routine in of itself is what causes success as opposed to failure. A few years ago, I read a book entitled Personal Investment for 360 Success by Pastor Aubrey. He's a Malawian author. And I think that was when I developed a formula, or I saw a pattern which I believe, if replicated, guarantees success for anyone, irrespective of who they are. As with anything in life, it's not necessarily a one size fits all. It's not one of those things which will just magically turn you into a success overnight. But as with many things in life, it's basically principles that, if adhered to, give you the highest chances of attaining success. In fact, the principles that are shared in that book, in my opinion, they don't just give you the highest chances of success. They make it almost improbable for you not to succeed, not to fail. Basically, by adhering to what Pastor Aubrey talks about in his book, which I have seen manifest in my life and in the lives of many other people, I believe that replicating what he says we should make investments in is what will guarantee you success. Thereby, listening to what he says and then creating a routine based off of the investments that he talks about us making as people. That is what will guarantee you success. So what did Pastor Aubrey talk about in his book? So basically, Pastor Aubrey in his book, he breaks down the fact that man is a tripartite being. So man is a spirit, he has a soul, and he lives in a body. And therefore, if you want to make a routine, a daily routine, that is going to assure you success in the future, be it the near future or the distant future, what you need to do is you need to make investments in all three aspects of man. So you can't just make you can't just make investments in one area. You can't just make investments, let's say, in the spiritual. And that's something that we see many times here in Africa, where a person strictly becomes spiritual. They decide that all they're going to do is pray, all they're going to do is fast, and by praying and fasting, that is what is going to guarantee them success. And many times this leads to disappointment. And as we like to say it here, it ends in tears. Yes, praying, fasting, being spiritual, good and well. But then, man being a tripartite being, you can't ignore the soulish realm, which is the mind, the will, and the emotions. And you can't ignore the physical realm, which is, our body, the fact that we're functioning here on earth using a body. So how can you, knowing that man is a tripartite being, knowing that there's a soul, there's a spirit, and there's a body involved, how then do you come up with a routine that incorporates these aspects of man that will guarantee you success? What I can say is you need to understand the order in which you're going to operate, or the order in which you're going to make these investments. First and foremost has to be the spirit. Understanding that man is primarily a spirit, that is the key understanding that should drive what your routine should look like. The first thing you do is you feed your spirit. Your spirit is your inner man. Your spirit is who you are. Your spirit is created by God, and God is also a spirit. So that's where we begin. So these things of prayer, studying the word, meditation, that should be the first thing that you must incorporate into any routine that you come up with. So be it in the morning, let's say, for argument's sake, if you wake up, you make sure that you pray, you make sure that you study, you make sure that you spend some time in meditation, you make sure that you spend some time in the word. The next aspect that you need to invest in and make sure that you have and in your daily routine in order for you to be a success is the element of your soul. So this is your mind, your will, and your emotions. You make sure that every single day you train your mind, you adjust your emotions, you enhance your willpower. If you notice, every single person who is very successful in this life, many of the times they are masters at controlling their emotions or making their emotions work on their behalf. They have very strong wills and their minds are sharp. And, this is done through mental training. This is done by taking exercises, playing games that intentionally train your mind. And an example of this, which you should all be doing, is just simple education or your job. That is an exercise that for many requires their soul or their mental capacities to work in full capacity. The next element that you need to factor into your daily routine is your body. So again, for many people, this can be their work. If you work in a manual labor job, then you need to make sure that your body is invested into, like you make sure it's in tip-top condition. You make sure that you rest accordingly, and you make sure that when it is time to rest, you don't forgo rest. I feel as if rest is one of the things that people forgo first in order to achieve success. Now, it may sound good and well that you overwork your body and you attain quote unquote success, but what is success when you don't have the body and the ability to enjoy it because you've run yourself to the ground? So a daily routine, I would say, requires these three elements. Number one, the soul. Number two, the spiritual exercise. Number three, the physical being taken care of. So what does this look like in practice? I'll give you an example of my daily routine. Now, it may differ slightly from day to day, but the basic principles remain the same. I wake up in the morning, and the first investment that I make is in the soul. So I study the Word of God, I pray, and I take time to meditate. And usually, immediately after prayer and study of the Word, I jump in the shower. And whilst I'm showering, I like to throw on a sermon by a man of God. So basically, I've prayed, I have read my Bible, and then I'm also listening to the Word of God. So this starts my day with spiritual investment. I go about my day. Usually I go to work. Well, after getting ready, I'll have my breakfast and then I'll head to work. So work for me is intellectually straining. I'm in the services business. I work in real estate. So that in itself is intellectually straining, but I don't count that as an intellectual investment. Me carrying out work is something which I'm supposed to do anyways. So it's not an investment. It's just me living. So I don't count, even though it's intellectual work, I don't count it as an intellectual investment. What I do for intellectual investment is that after work, I'll come back home and then I'll usually read a book. Every night before I go to bed, I make sure I read for at least 30 minutes. I like to watch a lot of YouTube videos with people who I find inspiring, people who I find thought-provoking. I like to hear different perspectives about different places. I like to explore the world through the words of other people. So that's what I use as my intellectual investments. As for my physical investments, I may not look it, but I exercise quite regularly. I have a treadmill at the house. So usually I'll go on the treadmill, sometimes in the morning before the office, sometimes in the evening. I'll go on the treadmill for about 30 minutes to an hour. Other days I go to the gym. Other days I play basketball. I'm a big fan of basketball. And other days I just take a long walk with my wife. So in so doing, I carry out the three forms of investment that I believe lead to success. And like I said, the routine in itself may vary from person to person. Your start time of work may differ from my start time of work. Your end time of work may differ from my end time of work. When you love to read might be in the morning, or it might be over your lunch break. I love to read in the evening. You may be someone who likes to exercise in the morning as opposed to the evening. Do it however way it works. But what I would advise in regards to the spiritual investment, in order for you to truly be successful, in order for you to have a routine that is truly successful, is no matter what, put the spiritual first. Everything else, you can sort of play around with it, but ensure that you start your day by investing in your spirituality. If you've listened this far along, thank you very much. I'd like you to hit that like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to tell a friend about Thoughts of the Young Icon. Thank you for tuning in.